All right, hey guys, what is going on? So, NFL Week 4 Weekcast breakdown. So, what do we learn about who can be potential contenders and pretenders in the AFC and the NFC conference standings? So, we're going to start with some game recaps. Let's go with probably what most people consider the best 1 o'clock game. We got the Philadelphia Eagles 31-25 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Started out in the first quarter where the Eagles on their first 4 to 5 possessions, they went down and scored. Jalen Hurts was very efficient in the first half. Second half, he kind of was a little bit quiet. The Buccaneers gave him a fight in the third and fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield, like he did last season, broke 4,500 passing yards and 40 touchdowns. He continues to hit his stride in the second half. Gave him a fight. Had a crucial turnover down the stretch that hurt the Buccaneers vitally, and also with the run play from Bucky Irvin and receiving, as well as Rashad White, they tried to give him a little bit of fight, but it just didn't work to their best benefit. Again, you got to give credit to the Eagles for withstanding that comeback that the Buccaneers was trying to throw at them. But again, you got to look at a lot of things to be considered. The injury to Mike Evans, him being out, injuries to the offensive line. They had to make and shift with the offensive line, so that didn't work to their best benefit for them. And also for the Buccaneers, they really started off slow. And also their linebackers, man, they need to really tool and revamp their linebackers and their secondary a little bit, because that was a little bit of cause of concern for me early on, because the front four, to me, they have probably the best front four in the league, but their linebackers, other than what they have with Levante David, pretty much on his last legs, they need to really shore up their linebackers, because that's the main big problem that I've seen from this game, because they was missing a whole lot of tackles. And you can just tell that who was the more hungrier team, who was the more team that's destined, who wants to go back and make another championship run. And that, to me, I saw from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles, you're going to see a whole lot of concerns. Now, Saquon Barkley, if we look at the kind of the stat line real quick, from Saquon Barkley only had 19 carries for 43 yards. Last game, he only had 15 carries for 45 yards. That's a concern. If I'm the Eagles, I would be concerned about that. And the reason why I say that there needs to be a concern, because number one, Saquon Barkley dang near rushed for 2,000, dang near close to 2,000 yards and close to 20 touchdowns, averaged dang near 6.5 yards per carry. He was on point last year. This season, he's got less carries, less touchdowns, and that's a big problem. If you're the Eagles, you need to look at that and really assess and really take a good hold down up front, because if you don't address these things towards the tail end of the season, like by week 13 and week 14, that's going to be continued a problem, because even when they do make the playoffs and if they do control home field advantage, you're going to need the running game, especially down the stretch, to help you maintain, games and maintain opportunity, and, take the ball out, and especially when you're not really taking the ball out of there to really go deep. You really going to need that running game to really uphold and withstand it. Because the offense can get very stagnant, and that's the very cause of much of concern if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're an Eagles fan, I will look at that stat line and really look at what the production that that's given to you, and really also look at Kellen Moore, as the play caller, because this guy came from Dallas as Dallas Cowboys as an offensive play caller, and you saw how that went down and how that turned about. If I'm the Eagles, man, I need to be feeding Saquon Barkley at least about 20 to 25 times. And that offensive line, they're not pushing people around in the running game from what I've seen, and that's a cause for concern. I'll be really looking forward and really looking to address that, from weeks 5 all the way up to week 10. Really address that and really look at that down the line. And they probably need to get Johnson back, not Lane. I think Lane. I don't know if Lane Johnson played, but if they didn't play, that's another thing they need to fix. They need to fix that in order for them to make a big run to go back-to-back years to go to the Super Bowl. So that's the thing that I would say is a main cause for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now defensively, yes, they played well in spots in the first half. Second half, they withstand and withhold that comeback from the Bucs. So the cornerbacks, mainly on the one side with Adoree Jackson, they need to really look at that and really assess that with the quickness. So I'm not too cause of concern for the Eagles as far as their pass rush. They still got one of the best pass rushes in the league with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith being out. That's a cause, but they got Zadarius Smith. So I'm okay about the D-line for the Eagles. And I'm okay with the secondary with Cooper DeJean and Quayon Mitchell are some dogs, are some absolute ballers. And there could be a chance that, since C.J. Gardner-Johnson was released by the Houston Texans, go back and go after him. If I was the Philadelphia Eagles, if you're still worried about as far as the back half of the secondary. But if not, you're probably going to go with Makuba, so that's fine right there. But if I'm the Eagles, those are the things I would still address, as a matter of fact, without a shadow of a doubt. And for the Buccaneers, you need to address the defense as far as the linebackers. You need to address the secondary. I don't know if Antoine Winfield Jr., I don't know what's going on with him. Jamel Dean, I don't know what is happening with them. They need to really look at the secondary and really that's a cause for concern if I'm a Buccaneers fan. But I feel like Todd Bowles is a good coach. He'll find some way to persevere and go through it. But offensively, you guys should be fine. You guys should be okay. Y'all got some good receivers. You got a decent tandem running game. But the defense needs a little bit of tools to work on. Now, going to the let's look at the Seahawks and the Cardinals game real quick, because that's another game where I'm gonna say this: Seattle is a team that I'm gonna be keeping my eye on throughout the entire season, because they could be a team that I could see possibly making a wild card. I don't think they're going to win a division, but I can see them making a wild card because they played decently this past game. Now all game long, you got Witherspoon, I think you got Devin Witherspoon, you got Tariq Woolen, and I think you also have Quandre Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, who came from the Cowboys. He's playing well. For the Seahawks, the defensively is not necessarily the concern. The only concern offensively, because they don't put up a lot of points, that would be a cause I would look at, because you got Sam Darnold, you got Cooper Kupp, and you got Jackson Smith and Jigba. So they're gonna be a problem in the NFC West, because I don't see nothing that the 49ers are doing because of the injuries. And for Arizona, man, oh my goodness, Kyler Murray is just an absolute so he is a disappointment for what I've seen. I don't really think he's really sees some of the field, because there was a lot of plays where he overthrows guys at least about 5, 6 some yards. And I'm like, dog, all you had to do was just stand there, read, and fit in the pocket, and really just fit it on a dime and fit it involved. But if you don't do that, then you're not going to even, if you're not Doug Flutie, if you're not a Drew Brees, if you're not a Russell Wilson, if you're not any of these guys, you got to figure out your priorities. And you got to really figure out, like, man, why am I not seeing the field properly? Why I'm not reading my progressions? Why I'm not reading where the ball is supposed to be fit? Because he overthrew Marvin Harrison Jr. He overthrew Ertz. He overthrew the tight end. Like, he overthrew a lot of guys, man. I'm like, what is happening here? And especially when you don't have James Conner, because I believe he had suffered an injury that is going to keep him out for pretty much a good chunk of the season. That's a problem. So, yeah, the Cardinals going to have a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to fix. And there are games where they're just completely blown it, whether they're up by double-digit points or whether they're down in the game. They completely play under the competition. And when you also have him as the leading Kyler Murray as the leading rusher, that's also a problem. You can't be able to really do much. And let's just look at the production real quick for the Cardinals. You know, you overthrow guys like Greg Dortch and Trey McBride a few times. You know, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like I said earlier, you overthrew him a couple of times. It's like that's a problem, and they need to work on that. And especially when you don't have as much explosiveness, in the receiving game, and big names. You just can't rely to overthrow them guys. You just can't do that. That's gonna be a big problem, a big issue. And the turnovers, you gotta control them if you're Kyler Murray. And for me, and also another thing that you have to keep your eye on is the total yards and Seattle at 155 rushing yards, an average dang near 6 yards per play. And also, they control the time of possession up at least about almost 5 minutes more than the Cardinals. That's another problem for Arizona to need to work on. So, yeah, that would be a thing I would work on completely if I was them. But a good win for the Seahawks. Now, the cause of concern, it should be a little bit at ease right now for the Houston Texans because they completely blew and destroyed out the Tennessee Titans. C.J. Stroud got the win and got that little that monkey off of the back about this is the game of their life. This is the game of their career, even though C.J. Stroud has won multiple playoff games. But this is the game of his life. It's the dumbest crap I've ever heard. No, what I think is happening with C.J. Stroud is he's not getting the proper protection. Watching that game at 1 o'clock at the house, I'm seeing that you trade away Laramie Tunsil, which I don't understand. I don't get that. You have to makeshift and move your left guard and go draft the left tackle. Then you don't have Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's been out with an injury. Nick Chubb is a shell of himself. And then also you don't have Tank Dell. He's been recovering for injury. You trade away John Mechie to the Eagles, which I didn't understand. I think that was a dumb trade. You get draft picks and capital, which I still didn't understand that. And then not only that, your receivers, you barely even played them. You barely even played them, in the first 3 stretches of the season, and you didn't even really hardly play them last season like that. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't. And then you finally got on track and forward with Nico Collins, and Dalton Schultz got himself going. So shout out to them. And they finally just woke up and decided hey, we can beat these guys. We can score. We can drive the ball down the field. We've been moving the ball down the field, but only settling for field goals. So they finally got off of their stride and got a good win for them. And again, I think the problem with the Texans is offensively, they don't have explosiveness in the receiving game. The lack of a running game because of Joe Mixon being out and Nick Chubb has pretty much lost a bunch of steps. And then the lack of protection on C.J. Stroud because he's pretty much running for his life. And the fact that, because the pressure comes so much, they send a spy or they send a blitzer, and his eye level he reads down and he don't always see the field as good as he's supposed to. So that'd be another thing I would say they need to really, really address and really look at and assess throughout the course of the season. And then for the Titans, there's nothing much to say about them. They pretty much are just low on a totem pole, low bottoms here. There's nothing really much to say about them. They're going to pretty much be one of the worst teams in the National Football League because their defense is, can't carry them. Their offense doesn't generate nothing. Their running game pretty much sucks. Their offensive line is terrible. Everything about the Titans is bad, so there's nothing really much to say about them. All right, so let's go to a game that pretty much we're going to look at my Lions and the Browns. So the Lions have gone to 3-1. A lot of people say, oh, the question is, oh, yeah, it's the Lions. It's the Lions offense. Is they're done? Can they generate explosive plays? Can Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery get on point? Said that after week 1, aberration, completely overreaction. They beat the number one defense in the they whooped on probably what considered as the number one defense in the National Football League in the Cleveland Browns, and not only put up 34 points. Now, now we can look at this total yards. Yeah, they didn't overtly dominate in total yards, passing nor rushing, but they dang near averaged 5 yards per play. They were efficient on third down. They had lesser penalties, lesser penalty yards, and in time of possession, although the Browns had more, the defense with Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph, they generated turnovers. They got after Joe Flacco. That's again, if I'm the Browns, I need to look at a different starting quarterback. Start Shador, because you're not gonna win none with Joe Flacco as your quarterback. Joe Flacco he's been done by at least 4 or 5 years now. 4 or 5 years ago, he should have been done. They called him back on the streets and said, "Yeah, we're gonna need you to play." But yeah, no, Joe Flacco is done. They need to let him go. Get somebody else. Get Shador Sanders in there, or if not, go play Dorian Thomas Robinson. Like, play him. I would have rather play him than have Joe Flacco there, because Joe Flacco sucks to me right now. But as far as the Lions concerned, man, salute to my Lions, man. They completely just took it over. Amon-Ra St. Brown is having a season of his life so far in these four games. Sam Laporta, I think he needs to get involved just a little bit more. And Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are finding their stride right now. As far as the running game, they're not as producing as much as they did production-wise last season, but they finding their stride. They're hitting their mark, and I really am happy for them hitting their mark and, showing people why they're still one of the top best teams in the league. And we'll get to the other team that a lot of people had an overreaction to that, man, just really, really disappointed me defensively and how, oh man, pathetic they. We'll get to them in a minute. We'll get to that Sunday night game. But yeah, but a really good win for the Detroit Lions, and yeah, kind of just shows y'all why the first game of the year, week 1, it's not always an indicator of what's gonna happen in the next points of the season. It's always at least 14 games more to be played. You just gotta play them. Just gotta let them go. Gotta let them let the field and see the field and let it play throughout. So yeah, Jared Goff didn't have to do too much. He only threw for 184 yards. I mean, that's Joe Flacco's number. Excuse me. He only threw for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he didn't really have to do too much. And Joe Flacco only had 184 yards. Excuse me. But yeah, and Jahmyr Gibbs had 15 carries for 91 yards, 6 yards per pop. Montgomery, gave him a little something. But yeah, really good win for the Lions. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, and let's talk about why I picked the Kansas City Chiefs over the Baltimore Ravens. And let's just say this. Before we get to the Chiefs and why I think Xavier Worthy return was an absolute big key, let's look at the Baltimore Ravens. They played with less effort defensively like I've ever seen before. They just felt like they just quit on each other, man. That was one of the worst performances I think I've seen defensively I've seen all year, bruh. And I thought I'd seen the worst last week against the Lions when they gave up dang near over 230 yards. Or close to 230 yards rushing wise. And dang near 200 yards passing. But this was just absolutely an abomination. An absolute abomination. And then offensively, y'all got stymied and stifled. Where y'all couldn't even make drives and drive down the field that good. I mean, y'all couldn't even drive down the field with aggression. They completely took Derrick Henry out of the game. The Chiefs' defense is Spagnuolo. They just completely shut the run game down and took Derrick Henry out the game. So that's a problem, And also Lamar Jackson holding the ball a little bit too long. That's also a problem because he is so reliable to get hurt, especially when he went out of the game this time with a hamstring. So yeah, that's a big problem. So for the Ravens, if you don't fire John Harbaugh if they don't get to it anywhere near the Super Bowl or even make a deep playoff run, I think this is the last time that you might see John Harbaugh as the coach for the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's time to just let him go because this has been since 2015. They have not won any significant big playoff games and gotten far in the playoffs when it counts the most. And you can't keep affording to not make big runs in the postseason. So that's the thing where I say, yo, you got to make some sort of change in the vanguard in the front office. So yeah, that would be my thing that I would say they need to look at. And overall, if they don't look at that stuff, then that's on them. That they feel themselves if they don't do that. Now for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes just showed you why he's the best quarterback in the league. I mean, there's nothing left to be said about that. Uh, Xavier Worthy added a huge spark, a huge presence because the offense wasn't generating a whole lot of explosive plays. And one of the only few times I think you don't have Mahomes being the lead rusher, you finally gathered and got, Isaiah Pacheco going, and you got Xavier Worthy and Kareem Hunt going. So you finally didn't have to have Mahomes being the leading rusher. Thank goodness. And you finally found some way to generate a running game, at least a little bit, because the Ravens can't stop the run. So yeah, they can't stop the run. You need to generate something. So that showed up in his rare ugly head, and then of course Xavier Worthy impact. Once they get Rashid Rice back, you're gonna see Kansas City pretty much get back to their winning ways and their winning formula, and I think that's where they're gonna be at their best. Because the Chargers blew that game against the Giants, and I don't trust them. I think Kansas City, for what I said all year, they're probably gonna still win a division in my opinion, because of the fact that with Mahomes, Reed, and Kelsey, you just can't beat that trio combination right there. And especially not in Arrowhead. They're really tough to beat there. All right. Let's get to. Oh yeah, before we get to any of the other two games, talk about the story of the day, which was the Indianapolis Colts going down in the ship. They lost by 7 against the LA Rams, 27-20, and the story pretty much was the Colts, mental mistakes from Adonai Mitchell, costing two touchdown opportunities for the Colts. One where he basically tried to lunge the ball into the end zone, but got it knocked out of his own hands, out of the back of the pylon, which caused a touchback, which was a turnover, and then Jonathan Taylor touchdown run that got called back because of a holding penalty, and then Daniel Jones' two interceptions. So those big mistakes, catastrophic mistakes, the Colts had left at least like 17 points on the board, whereas the Rams were the more experienced team, from Matthew Stafford, and they just showed you why they were the more experienced team. And this is his last. It's probably gonna be in my opinion. I think this is gonna be his last year. So he wants to go out, swinging. And Kyron Williams got involved really, really well. Puka Nacua pretty much, had the best game of his career. At least the best game of the season, I should say. With 13 receptions for 170 yards. Man, he was just all the way dominant. Tutu out with that one catch for 88 yards, that one big play that put the Rams, back in front and back in business. And also, the Colts, defensively, they were not that bad, but at the same time, the offensively turning the ball over at least 3 times, that's just not a good sign. And again, that just shows you that the inexperience of certain things, a team that's looking to be on the come up versus a team that's already been there and done that, far as got to the postseason, and some had championship level success besides a few. Yeah, and veteran presence, that pretty much was the difference and why the Rams, knock off the high and mighty fall and all the mighty have fallen for the Colts. So yeah, those are my thoughts with that one. And again, We'll see how both teams lay throughout the season. I think the Rams, they play. I don't know if they play. I think they play on Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken. Or if not, they play on Sunday night. One of the two. And then the Colts play the Vegas Raiders at home. So we'll see how those games go. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna talk about is we leave with the Sunday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this was a back and forth exchange after the Packers went up and got the extra point block in the second quarter, and the Cowboys pretty much the momentum went from there, and it shot up after a block extra point return. But the story pretty much was Dak Prescott having an absolute phenomenal game. Javonte Williams as well. The Cowboys was willing to drop on this Packers so-called vaunted front defense, front four, and Mike with the newly acquired Micah Parsons. And then, of course, the secondary for the Packers was absolutely just tortured and getting cooked all game long, which was an absolute surprise to me that the secondary got torched more or less than the running game. Got gashed a little bit, but the secondary getting torched was losing Nate Dobbs. That was an impactful. That was a moment where they just felt the impact on that was there. And then they was able to match Green Bay's scoring load point for point. Jordan Love had a really good game and offensively. And, defensively, the Cowboys still can't stop the run on their own end. And Josh Jacobs was able to get 2 touchdowns on 22 carries for 86 yards. And they was able to get 4 receptions out the backfield. So he was able to be impactful in that sense. So, yeah, that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign for the Packers offensively, but defensively, I was just shocked on how completely they got obliterated, and that's a cause of concern for me. That I would say, look, y'all really need to look at that stuff, you know, moving forward, and actually with Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, who were pretty much getting hyped up as some of the better linebacker tandem. They did not play like it on Sunday, man. They did not play like it, and you can tell giving up 40 points. That's not a sign. That's not a sign to me that a team that's wanting to take the next step. It's still going to be a work in progress for them moving forward. So, yeah, those are my thoughts, and yeah, those are my overall recap of the early window and late slate of games. Tell me what you guys think down in the comment section. I am out. Peace.